This next story, this next piece that I have for you guys begins with watching this video. If you're ready, let's get right into it.
A career of service and patriotism describes Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Bailey, Samford University's Alumnus of the Year. Bailey, a member of the United States Air Force, served his country with honor and distinction. As a nurse, Bailey's numerous roles include Director of Reserve Medical Plans and Programs and Director of Search and Rescue. He's also a Purple Heart Medal recipient. He continues to serve his country, helping the Disabled American Veterans Association and aiding veterans looking to pursue nursing degrees. Bailey's service to Samford includes sitting on numerous committees for the Moffitt and Sanders School of Nursing, and currently, Bailey is a member of the Moffitt and Sanders Nursing Advisory Board. Wow. Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Bailey, Samford University's 2020 Alumnus of the Year.
Wow. All right, so pretty impressive, I got to say. I mean, that's quite a list of accomplishments right there. And it would be really remarkable if it wasn't for the fact that it wasn't true. A major was kicked out for stealing narcotics. Then he took $820,000 from the Air Force. It was all a lie. Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. I know the chat's going to go crazy with this one. Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Bailey said he retired from the Air Force after nearly 20 years of distinguished service to his country, with a combat tour in Afghanistan under his belt and a Purple Heart and Bronze Star pinned to his chest. Bailey said he spent years as a search and rescue and battlefield medicine specialist. He said combat wounds caused a total and permanent disability that has stopped him from working following his medical discharge from the Air Force. Only it's not true. For the past 2 years, Bailey has been the subject of a federal investigation into a complex web of financial and bankruptcy fraud he spun over the course of a decade. Can you believe that? Oh, Samford University, you didn't know. They didn't know. It's not on them. It's not on them. The former major was expelled from the Air Force following a 2010 court-martial conviction for illicit drug use and theft while stationed in Iraq. The theft is the worst part. I'd prefer, taking care of somebody who, turned to drugs in a time of desperation than I would somebody who's a thief. The decision aimed to strip him of his pay, benefits, and access to Veterans Affairs resources. Then, unbeknownst to the Air Force, the service continued sending him paychecks for 7 years, and he chose to keep the paychecks. Why not? He stole about $1.5 million, including $820,000 in pay and benefits from the Air Force, from an array of federal agencies and financial institutions, while getting paid for consulting and teaching jobs under false pretenses, federal prosecutors said. Leveraging a stolen Valor military record to consult, which, if you guys are regular listeners to the show, is a common tactic that these fraudsters use. He never medically retired from the Air Force, and at no point during his military service did Brandon LaRosse Bailey receive the Purple Heart. He did not receive the Purple Heart from the service. Under a plea deal the DOJ struck with Bailey and his attorneys, the government plans to drop all but 2 of the 13 counts of misconduct against him. He pled guilty in June 2021 to stealing money from the Air Force and to bankruptcy fraud. His sentencing hearing is scheduled for Wednesday at the U.S. District Court in the Southern District of Alabama in Mobile. I was listening to Kanye West a lot recently, and she's like, this is Ellie Mae from Mobile, Alabama. I don't have to date in the family no more, and I rode a plane. That's the new workout plan by Kanye West. Oh, man, throwback. Federal lawyers recommended the court sentence Bailey to 3 years of supervised release to repay between $1.5 and $3.5 million to those he defrauded. Yeah, right, like that'll ever happen. And to turn over his 4-bedroom, 3-bath house in Maine, and potentially, worst of all, his Ford F-150 pickup truck, several properties in Alabama, and the contents of 11 bank and investment accounts. Bailey is a serial fraudster for whom a low-end guideline sentence is reasonable. James Davis, a law enforcement coordinator with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Mobile, told Air Force Times March 17th the government is not seeking jail time because Bailey already faces enormous losses. Yeah. What's a year in jail? Like, yeah, you could give him a year in jail. People might feel good about seeing that because of the stolen valor thing. But, his life's going to be ruined either way. So I guess it's a moot point. He didn't physically hurt anybody. He's not a violent offender. So just by basically taking his money away for life, because he'll never be able to repay that debt, and you can't bankruptcy a federal penalized debt. So he's basically screwed. A federal judge will make the final call on whether Bailey will spend time in jail, how much money he must return, and other terms of punishment at the Wednesday sentencing hearing. The maximum he could receive is 15 years in prison, followed by 6 years of supervised release, a $500,000 fine, and another special fee of $200. So they love to. Then they'll get you with like, oh, by the way, $200 for this, $20 for that, $30 for this. Like, come on, man, I'm $4 million in debt. What are you gonna do to me? He is awaiting sentencing in Conecuh County Jail in southern Alabama. Let's see. Who is Brandon Bailey, the article says from Military Times. According to his Air Force Personnel Center record, because, now who is he really, He joined the reserve in 2001 and was placed on active duty in 2004. He became a flight crew nurse, rising to the rank of major. So he did do that. The major deployed to a joint base Balad in Iraq in 2008, peak Iraq time, where he worked as the 332nd Expeditionary Operations Support Squadron's medical crew director. He led a 5-person crew of medical technicians and nurses on medical transport missions, treating ailments from contracted diseases to battle wounds. In that job, Bailey was responsible for keeping track of a box of supplies loaned from the pharmacy for medical evacuations. He was also in charge of accounting for any medications used during those missions. Then he got weird, it says. Bailey's unnamed roommate in mid-October 2008 noticed him acting strangely and talking to non-existent people. That's when you report your buddy. He also witnessed Bailey draw a controlled substance into a syringe and inject himself in the arm. A subsequent search of the appellant's locker and nightstand revealed an aeromedical evacuation box, multiple empty vials of various narcotics, syringes, and needles stashed in the appellant's locker and nightstand. So they urine tested him for positive for multiple controlled substances. He used mepridine, morphine, oxy, and lorazepam between September 20th and October 20th, 2008. My mistake, not 2020, 2008. He possessed mepridine, morphine, sulfate, oxycodone, acetaminophen, diazepam, and phenobarbital. Isn't acetaminophen like Tylenol? He also stole promethazine and mepridine from September 3rd to the day he was caught on October 20th. Bailey claims his actions were fairly attributable to injuries suffered while deployed, but the court said he presented no supporting evidence, and a mental review concluded he was sane. So, in other words, they are saying he was lying. He was convicted on 13 counts of wrongful drug use, possession, and appropriation, as well as theft in a general court-martial. The military judge at Shaw Air Force Base, South Carolina, sentenced him to dismissal from the Air Force and 3 months of confinement. He appealed the sentence and was placed on leave while the military judge deliberated. Bailey acknowledged his Air Force career was over. He said, "I'm doing well out of the Air Force" on Facebook on October 25th, 2010. Trying to figure out what to do with my life, he says. Yeah, so nearly 3 years later, the Air Force Court of Criminal Appeals denied his complaint that the decision to boot him from the service was too harsh. Bailey's willful conduct failed to live up to the high standard of accountability expected of commissioned officers. Although the appellant's previous contributions during his career are excellent, he engaged in a course of conduct that included stealing drugs entrusted to him for the use of his comrades wounded in combat and causing himself to act in a bizarre and inappropriate manner. The Air Force formally separated Bailey as a major on October 1st, 2013, in the officer equivalent of a dishonorable discharge. Bailey falsely portrayed himself as a retired Air Force nurse, combat rescue officer, a veteran of a combat tour in Afghanistan, and a Purple Heart Medal recipient, probably the most egregious crime he did, especially coming after that story we just covered of the podcast there. Air Force records show he received 20 military awards and decorations during his service. They largely included typical awards like ribbons from deployment or completing training or national defense, but no record of a Bronze Star or Purple Heart on his DD-214. So then he starts to defraud people. He was erroneously placed on the Air Force's payroll as a springboard for multiple other schemes. Basically, he used that money that he was getting wrongly as basically proof of his claims. So Bailey continued to log on to get annual W-2 forms and monthly pay statements that appeared to show his accurate income and employment status. He occasionally received care at military health facilities in violation of Air Force rules. He falsely portrayed himself publicly as an active duty Air Force member and relied on Air Force documents and to open bank accounts and obtain loans, credit cards, and other items of value that were not that he was not lawfully entitled to receive. His fraud includes Social Security, Department of VA, funding for farmers through the Department of Agriculture, unbelievable. Student loan forgiveness through the Department of Education, loans from J.P. Morgan, Barclays Bank, and SunTrust Bank, among others, and a part-time staff pay at Alabama Samford University, where they featured him in that cool video talking about how awesome he is. Let's see. He transferred a lot of this money to family members, probably to launder it. He also paid his parents over $17,000 of this money. Bailey has admitted to one of 4 counts of bankruptcy-related fraud in which he failed to list nearly $70,000 in income as part of his estate when he filed for bankruptcy in 2019. He concealed hundreds of thousands of dollars in insurance money he received after a house fire and the assessment and sale values of several parcels of land. So he's basically been lying long-term. Going down here near the to the next subject here. The Pentagon caught this. The agency that handles military payroll was never told that Bailey was removed. So basically, there was a miscommunication in admin. Everyone knows admin doesn't do their job anyway. In total, the Air Force paid Bailey $818,000 in the 7 years between his court-martial conviction, which barred him from receiving pay or benefits, and the day the Defense Department struck him from its ledger. He's been claiming to be disabled since March 14, 2012. He appears to be actively engaged in farming activity, though. So fraud, disability fraud. Let's see. The list goes on here. He eventually gets caught. Officers believed Brandon and Todd were having a relationship dispute. So let's see. Let me go back here a little bit. Sperlin noted in 2020 that he couldn't find official documentation that Brandon and Todd Bailey are legally married, so he had listed a husband here. The two live together in Maine and have moved around the country together. Todd wrote to federal lawyers in September 2021 to protest the potential seizure of his home, his bank, and his securities. I was not aware of any illegal behavior or activities that Brandon may or may not have been involved in. Todd's parents called the police department in Holden, Maine to warn that Brandon was threatening to kill himself in front of Todd at home, according to a copy of an FBI report. An officer visiting the house detained Brandon, who was sitting in the truck with the engine running. Officers believed that Brandon and Todd were having a relationship dispute, which had led to a verbal altercation. Brandon did not express any ideations in the officer's presence, so I guess they let that go. The two men both claimed the other was experiencing mental health issues, so it's a he said type thing. Law enforcement found 3 weapons at the house. So this was basically coming to a head here in what could have been a true tragic ending. The DOJ has asked the court to further address this incident at the upcoming hearing. Bailey's alleged misconduct while awaiting sentencing was brazen, indicative of a lack of acceptance of responsibility and worthy of punishment, prosecutors said. So what do you guys think? Does this deserve a stiffer punishment? Should this be an enhanced sentencing, or is no jail time and a $3.5 million penalty steep enough for what he's done? What's the worst part of this, I ask you too? Is it the stolen valor? Is it the pretending to be on active duty when you're not? Is it the domestic violence? Is it the using VA healthcare when you're not eligible for it? You know, is it the money? Is it just the money? What is it? What's the worst part? And where do you think he should stand at the end of all of this? Let me know. What's up, guys? Thanks for watching that clip from our live show. We're live right here on YouTube, Sunday through Thursday, 1800 Pacific Standard Time. If you want, come on by, join the chat. I'd love to hear from you. If you like that video and you want to see more, consider checking out this video right here or subscribing to the channel with this button right here. I look forward to talking to you really soon. I'm out for now.